Fried chicken. To some, it's a comfort food that evokes precious childhood memories, and to others, it's a timeless representation of American culture. As I've gotten older, I've given up many junk foods, but fried chicken is one guilty pleasure I just can't let go. There's something magical about it, the contrasting textures, the combination of juicy chicken with crispy breading, along with its spice, salt, and fat that make for such a satisfying meal any time of the year. Fried chicken is loved around the world, and these days there are more varieties than ever before. There's classic southern bone-in buttermilk fried chicken, pub-style buffalo wings that are slathered in hot sauce, diner chicken and waffles drenched in maple syrup, boneless Japanese karaage coated in potato starch, citrus marinated fried chicken from Latin America, Nashville hot chicken that's served with pickles, Taiwanese popcorn chicken doused in 5-spice, and my personal favorite, the sticky, sweet, ultra-crunchy Korean fried chicken. Beyond flavors and textures, fried chicken comes in many forms like tenders, nuggets, bone-in, wings, wraps, and sandwiches. Kentucky Fried Chicken was once widely considered to be the golden standard, the best fried chicken one could get. While I grew up on KFC and its family buckets and biscuits, KFC these days is far from the golden standard that it once was. It's nothing like the KFC from my childhood. The mashed potatoes taste like glue, the chicken is greasy, it's dry, it's expensive, and even when it's served at its best, KFC doesn't come close to the quality of other establishments like Popeyes, Chick-fil-A, Jollibee, Raising Cane's, and more. There are a variety of places nowadays to get your fried chicken fix, and Kentucky Fried Chicken is an afterthought. As fried chicken has evolved, consumer tastes have also changed. Nowadays, I prefer to pay more for less, for a product that's fresher, smaller in quantity but higher in quality, and more unique like soy garlic or honey glazed Korean fried chicken. KFC has dominated fried chicken around the world with legacy and scale, but its relevance and popularity in America has been declining for years. As the kernel has weakened, longtime rivals in Popeyes and Chick-fil-A have all laid claims to the chicken throne. Even the world's second largest investment bank, Goldman Sachs, sees this rare opportunity to upset the established order and take a piece of a booming multi-billion-dollar food category that's growing faster than burgers and fries. In 2020, Goldman Sachs acquired Zaxby's for $2 billion with the ambitions of taking the southern chain nationwide and soon international. On the other side of the world, the Eastern siege has begun. Jollibee and Kyochon, who have both dominated East Asia for decades, have now shifted their focus to the West, eager to carve out a slice of the kernel's market share for themselves. The popular narrative amongst Americans is that KFC's drop in quality over the years is the result of ruthless cost-cutting measures from out-of-touch executives looking to juice earnings per share and who wouldn't know good fried chicken if it hit them in the face. When you look at KFC in America, it's outdated, run down, cheap, and uncreative with a really boring menu. But when you look at KFC around the world, in South America, Europe, Asia, Africa, and the Middle East, KFC is a star brand that's known for its quality chicken, great service, and unique offerings. So how is it that the same company can be so great internationally and so poor in its home market? In this episode, we'll cover the fried chicken wars, the strategy and missteps that have brought KFC in America to where it is today, and how legacy and brand power can be just as much as a curse as it is a blessing in the world of business. Chicken is the world's most popular protein. As chicken consumption per capita continues to break records and coming fresh off the chicken sandwich mania, companies and investors believe that there's still room for growth. 2 decades ago, people would have told you that a Quarter Pounder and a Whopper would be the best burger that you could get. Fast forward today and you have Five Guys and Shake Shack who have both elevated the lowly burger from a cheap bite into a high-end premium, with each of these new brands grossing nearly $1 billion in sales every year. While Shake Shack and Five Guys are not at the scale of the Golden Arches, having 2 thriving billion-dollar businesses is still a significant milestone in a mature market that many historically believed had no room for competition. The evolution of burgers and the success of new entrants is a parallel that feeds the ambitions of restaurateurs and fast food companies who both believe that the same developments will play out with fried chicken. Restaurants are a notoriously hard business. In a typical full-service restaurant, food costs are roughly 30 to 35% of sales, labor costs are 30 to 40%, and overhead, which is rent and advertising and utilities, clocks in at about 20 to 30%. With such heavy cost structures, it's no surprise that the average restaurant profit margin hovers at 3 to 5%. Like all restaurants, fried chicken shops face the universal challenges of saturation and acquisition, but modern fried chicken shops have some natural operational advantages compared to most restaurants with lower labor costs, food costs, and overhead. Fried chicken is a takeout business, so consumers are looking to grab and go with no expectations of ambiance. As a result, fried chicken shops have gotten smaller and more bare bones over the years, with floor plans that have little to no dine-in areas for consumers. In contrast, dining space is critical for almost every other type of restaurant, as their business is a function of how many customers they can seat and how fast they can turn over tables. Modern fried chicken shops can get away with a few tables or sometimes nothing at all, just a counter for people to order, pick up, and leave. As a place for people to stop at but not stay at, fried chicken businesses can save on overhead, fit into smaller spaces for cheaper rent, and are less dependent on location and foot traffic for business. Food costs are a function of ingredients and menu diversity. The bigger the menu, the greater the variety of dishes to choose from, the wider range of price points a restaurant can offer, and the better chance a customer will find something that they like. But on the flip side, the more items on a menu, the more ingredients that must be sourced, and the higher the food costs. Fried chicken shops in comparison generally have very simple, concise, easy to understand, and predictable one-page menus. Beyond the chicken itself, fried chicken shops will typically offer low-cost, high-margin fried sides like French fries or pre-made sides like mac and cheese to round out their menu. They'll sometimes have a few salad or dessert options for balance. Modern fried chicken shops lean on their sauces and marinades for differentiation, and the core ingredients that make up 90% of the menu for fried chicken shops all around the world, chicken, flour, potatoes, and oil, are all cheap, widely available, and stable in supply. While fried chicken shops can use just about every part of a chicken with little waste, restaurants who serve beef or pork generally can only use ground forms or premium cuts like ribs, chops, or ribeye. Since the customer interaction is so limited, fried chicken shops don't need a proper front of house and wait staff and servers. Some shops these days are so operationally lean that the person frying the chicken can be the same person who takes the order from the customer. For the back of the house, most shops fry in batches in advance of customer orders. And since nearly everything on the menu is fried, cooks just need to be trained on how to fry something. When it comes to cooking, fried chicken shops just need fryers, ovens, and warmers. In contrast, restaurants need ranges, flat tops, fryers, ovens, warmers, microwaves, steamers, salamanders, boilers, along with the space to operate such equipment. While the modern fried chicken shop has evolved to become smaller and leaner while offering better quality over the years, KFC has struggled to adapt. To set the stage, KFC is owned by Yum Brands, who also owns Pizza Hut, Taco Bell, and the Habit Burger Grill in its portfolio. In portfolio companies, investment is never evenly distributed across all brands. Just like in a family with multiple kids, in every portfolio there's always a golden child, a brand that executives have the most hope for and consequently gets the most attention, prioritization, and investment. On the flip side, there are neglected brands who chug along with really minimal investment and attention. KFC for decades has been that golden child. In the past 10 years, KFC has made over double the amount of sales of Taco Bell and Pizza Hut combined. KFC made over $30 billion in 2021 and single-handedly contributes over 50% of Yum Brands' annual revenue. In calls and presentations, KFC is always featured or mentioned first. Knowing this, it would be unfair to attribute KFC's regression in America over the years as the result of underinvestment or a lack of care. On paper, KFC looks like a solid business. When we look at all the traditional metrics that a fast food chain would be evaluated by, KFC, by that definition, is successful. System sales, which are the dollar value of food and beverages sold at all KFCs in the United States and around the world with the exception of China, has increased year over year. KFC global system sales has grown 36% in 9 years, from $23 billion in 2013 to $31 billion in 2022. Just like McDonald's and other fast food corporations, KFC has moved away from being an operator and franchisor to becoming just a pure franchisor. By operating fewer stores, KFC gives up any sales upside in exchange for franchise fees, which are a lower but more stable form of recurring revenue. Franchise fees are made up of two components, the first being one-time, fixed, upfront payments that franchisees must pay upfront for the right to operate a store and whenever they renew or transfer those rights to someone else. These one-time fees range from thousands to tens of thousands of dollars. The second and more lucrative fee for KFC is the royalty. Every month, franchisees have to pay up 4 to 6% of their gross sales or a fixed minimum, whichever is greater. Under this pure franchisor strategy, KFC reduces its own overhead and places all the operating risk on its franchisees. In 2013, 9 out of every 10 KFC stores were franchised. As of 2022, 99% of all KFC stores around the world have been franchised. When nearly 10 out of every 10 customers are being served by a local operator, that means the customer experience and food quality of the KFC brand is almost entirely in the hands of its franchisees. If we put ourselves in the Colonel's shoes as the franchisor, while we can sit back and count our cash safely every month in our ivory tower, we have to maintain our relationships with our franchisees and maintain consumer demand so we can keep the royalties flowing in. The more stores we open, the more franchisees we get, and the more fees we can collect. The franchisor strategy is a volume play that works at scale, and it certainly helps that KFC is the second largest restaurant chain in the world and the global fried chicken leader with over 25,000 restaurants in 145 countries. While KFC provides guidelines, sets the menu, runs the advertisements, and supplies everything from equipment, food and packaging, down to the furniture, cleaning supplies, utensils, and napkins, it's ultimately up to the franchisee on how they want to operate and execute. Franchisees can set their own prices, staff as many people or as few as they want, and establish their own hours of operation for each location. The relationship between a franchisor and its franchisees is always a testy one of power and control. Both sides need trust and support from each other in order to thrive. But when they don't get along, things can get nasty. And when 99% of stores are franchised like they are with KFC, the power dynamics naturally shift away from corporate and towards the favor of the franchisees. When we break down KFC's revenue over the years, we can see the powerful results from its franchisor strategy. Back in 2013, franchise fees accounted for 28% of revenue, while sales from locations that KFC directly operated accounted for 72% of revenue. By 2022, these two revenue streams have flipped, with franchise fees representing 56% of revenue and self-operated store sales accounting for 21%. This same inflection point can be seen when graphed by dollar value, where KFC franchise fees have grown from $800 million to $1.5 billion, and self-operated sales have decreased from $2 billion down to $600 million over the same time frame. In the same period, KFC's annual operating margin with less overhead has improved significantly, almost doubling from 23% to 42%. As KFC has opened and franchised more stores worldwide, food and beverage at franchised locations have also grown over the years. System sales at franchised KFCs have grown from $20 billion in 2013 to $30 billion in 2022. At the same time, KFC has successfully demanded a higher cut over the years from its franchisees. In 2013, a KFC franchise paid out on average 4% royalty. Fast forward 9 years and the average KFC franchise now pays out a little over 5%, which is a sign of brand and franchisor strength. Along the way, KFC has doubled its stores worldwide, going from 13,000 locations in 2013 to over 26,000 locations in 2022. Same-store sales, which is a measure of if and how many customers are coming back to the restaurants every year, has also remained steady, averaging at 2% every year both before and during COVID. Cannibalization, saturation, and retention don't seem to be issues for the world's largest fried chicken shop. Yet the fundamental issue with most business analysis is that it's always historical, meaning only after something has obviously happened do all the numbers, graphs, rationale, commentary, and case studies get made. Despite KFC's aforementioned success, there are signs that if we dig deep enough, that this is a company that is playing its last cards. Instead of addressing the declining consumer popularity, loyalty, and sentiment in America, KFC these days looks overseas to replace the churn at home. The company focuses on international expansion while doing just the bare minimum domestically to stay relevant. The only viable strategy that KFC has is to leverage its brand equity in the areas of the world where it's still worth something, and those places are overseas markets that its competitors haven't reached and where the Colonel's legacy remains intact. While KFC is happy to invest in localization, build beautiful international stores that have massive, comfortable dining areas that are designed to encourage consumers to stay as long as possible, and compete on quality by constantly releasing new and creative menu items, the company makes no effort to do the same in the United States. KFC stores in America are old, rundown buildings with inferior dining spaces that look cheap and feel uncomfortable. The menu is just as stale as ever before, and the food quality is getting worse. KFC is a tale of two businesses, a star chain with great food and service around the world, and yet is an inconsistent, unpopular, dying brand in America. While KFC languishes in America but thrives overseas, its executives don't seem to realize the reality that success from first mover advantage, legacy, and capital is always short-lived, especially in a high-growth food category like fried chicken, where it's no longer the brand that dictates quality. In the years leading up to 2015, KFC in America had hit rock bottom. Fried foods had become public enemy number 2 behind soda. The company had just resolved a high-profile dispute with its franchisees over the brand's failed healthy repositioning and grilled chicken offerings. Customers became confused, grilled chicken failed to sell, and sales plummeted, and franchisees all rallied together to stop what they saw as an act of self-sabotage and to raise the heat on the executive team. Like many other fast food brands in the early and mid-2010s, KFC was caught in an external identity crisis and internal strife, attempting to keep the peace at home with its franchisees. As a result, revenue, system sales, and operating profit all stagnated between 2013 and 2015. While the future looked uncertain at home, KFC continually told its investors that the company had two main strategies. One was to transition to franchise-led growth, and two was to become the fried chicken leader in emerging international markets. Between 2013 to 2015, KFC in the US launched dud after dud, like the Colonel's Original Sandwich, which was just a boneless tender placed on a Hawaiian roll, the Original Recipe and Hot Shot Bites, which was just a cross between a nugget and a tender, KFC Go Cups to make it easier for people to eat in their cars, Bucket Kids Meal, which was just a repackaging of the kids meal into a bucket form, and the Loaded Potato Bowl, which just added a different sauce and green onions on an existing core menu item. Unsurprisingly, these items failed to inspire sales, and KFC had no highlights to celebrate about its domestic operations during this 3-year stretch. Instead, executives focused on KFC's international success for 3 straight years, talking up its overseas achievements like 40% sales growth year over year in Russia and double-digit growth in Africa and Thailand. The thing is though, by 2015, 92% of KFCs in the world were already franchised, and Americans only accounted for 24% of KFC's sales. 70% of all KFC stores at this time were already located outside of the United States. So international expansion and franchise-led growth were not some new goals for KFC. These were initiatives that the company had already been doing for decades. To continuously restate the potential of overseas growth and the importance of international sales year over year just shows how little was going right for KFC in America. In 2016, KFC unveiled a grand turnaround plan that it called the rekernelization to win back customers at home in the United States. The company unveiled this plan at a major media event in New York City as a part of a, quote, public recommitment to the standards set forth by founder Colonel Harlan Sanders. Coming off a string of viral, embarrassing incidents that had the American public openly questioning the sanitation and standards of KFC, like mutant chickens and deep-fried rats, the company had decided that enough was enough. In the eyes of KFC, its American franchisees had failed to live up to their end of the bargain with years of neglect and sloppiness. Perhaps it was corporate complacency, too much focus on international expansion over the domestic business, or laziness from franchisees, or potentially all of the above. Whatever the case was, it was obvious to everyone that KFC in America was and had been operating at below acceptable standards for years, and that had to change. KFC wanted to get back to competing on quality as a way to make up for all the ground that it had lost to its national rivals in Chick-fil-A, Popeyes, Raising Cane's, and even to regional challengers like Bojangles, Zaxby's, and Church's. KFC cracked the whip on its franchisees, using this public event as a way to restore food quality, operator discipline, and consumer confidence. KFC temporarily shut down all their stores nationwide, created a mandatory chicken mastery certification program for its franchisees, and retrained all 20,000 of its operators on how to cook, quote, the way the Colonel intended, showing just how far and how wide the standards had fallen in America. These were highly publicized and aggressive steps that placed the blame of KFC's downfall on its operators, but KFC was just as much to blame for letting franchisees operate so poorly for so long in America. Yet KFC had its hands tied. There's only so much they could push before the franchisees would revolt like they did back in 2011. So to enforce this new focus on quality, KFC looked to the public to hold franchisees accountable with the new Kernel Quality Taste Guarantee. This new worldwide policy stated that anytime a customer was unsatisfied with their meal, that KFC store, and by extension, that franchisee, would have to remake that portion out of their own pocket. As part of the plan, KFC also committed to renovating its stores in the US into American showrooms, sleek, modern, eye-catching, bright red and white striped exteriors with vintage interiors. When it came to marketing, the company went back to its tried and trusted roots, relying once again on legacy and nostalgia, bringing back the Colonel as the mascot along with the Always Original and Finger Lickin' Good campaigns. The reintroduction of the $5 fill-up boxes and $20 family buckets were commercial successes, reinforcing value in the mind of consumers. KFC is not better than Chick-fil-A or Popeyes, but it's a lot cheaper and more bang for your buck. The wins continued for KFC throughout 2016 with the launch of Nashville Hot and Georgia Gold. These new menu items were not only significant in breathing new life into the brand, but also in their design and symbolism. These new flavors and dishes were a major departure from the iconic 11 herbs and spices that KFC had conservatively clung onto throughout its existence. This newfound momentum in the United States and the continued international success in emerging markets propelled KFC to new records in 2016. Same-store sales grew to 3% in 2016, and the KFC US business surged back to $5.5 billion in gross sales. But this would turn out to be no more than a one-year wonder. Hidden behind these top-line successes is that in the United States, KFC had been closing over 100 stores every year for nearly a decade. While the new offerings and stronger marketing had improved the overall brand, there was just never enough demand to go around. KFC stores were shuttering, and the local demand for fried chicken in America was continually and swiftly replaced with Chick-fil-A, Popeyes, and other independent shops. Yet in 2017, KFC had reason to be optimistic about its US business based on 2016. The company believed that it had finally cleaned up its act and could now compete on quality with its rivals as a trendsetter. With high hopes, KFC launched their original hand-breaded Zinger sandwich with the ambition of conquering the chicken sandwich category. KFC spared no expense in marketing the Zinger, literally launching the sandwich into space and auctioning off a 400-year-old meteorite for virality. While the Zinger was an international hit, it failed to catch on with Americans. Company executives were probably crushed 2 years later when Popeyes came out with its own chicken sandwich in 2019, and that turned into the mainstream hit that KFC had so desperately hoped the Zinger would be. At the same time, KFC's international business continued to overperform in emerging markets like Brazil, where KFC grew an astounding 18% in same-store sales. In Russia, where KFC opened 1,000 new stores in a single year, they experienced 33% sales growth year over year. And at this point in 2017, KFC's international business already accounted for nearly 90% of the company's profits, and the US business was already well on its way to becoming an afterthought. The United States, which historically contributed the most and nearly a quarter of KFC's overall sales up to 2016, had actually devalued over time, dropping as low as 16% by 2019. Sales from KFCs in the US have steadily declined from $5.6 billion in 2014 to as low as $4.4 billion by 2018, long before COVID. The problems of KFC's US business are continually masked and overshadowed by KFC's international success, which skews not only the company's top line, but also the bottom line and the traditional metrics that we covered earlier. Yet KFC's leaders to this day proudly proclaim mission accomplished and that the KFC turnaround in the United States is a complete success. Predictably, the executives who came up with the rekernelization plan in 2016 have used its success to leapfrog up the corporate ladder. One is now the CEO of Chili's, and the other became the CEO of Carl's Jr. before moving into tech. Sometime between 2017 and 2019, KFC executives must have gone over these same numbers and arrived at an obvious decision to cut losses and quietly deprioritize the US business. While KFC continued to try its hand at menu innovation for Americans with the pickle fried chicken, the crispy kernel sandwich, smoky mountain barbecue, chicken and waffles, mac and cheese bowls, and Cinnabon biscuits, This tactic feels similar to Taco Bell's playbook, who regularly releases limited time offerings with very small quantities as a way to build up hype, but more importantly to juice demand and energize sales for stores on a regular basis. In contrast, the products that KFC introduces for its international customers are regularly celebrated for their commercial success and become a core part of the menu. In Japan, it's the peri peri chicken. In Australia, it's the popcorn chicken slab, or the Crunch Double Down and Rapstar lunchbox in Africa. When KFC executives talk about the US business these days, quality is not mentioned anywhere, and there's only one strategy: value. Add more options into the $5 fill-up and $20 family meals. Introduce an a la carte menu where consumers can now mix and match 2 sides for $6. Throw in an add-on where Americans can get 12 tenders for just $10 more on a $20 family meal. Blasting advertisements constantly on social media, reminding people how cheap KFC is. Releasing gimmicky marketing stunts, each more outlandish and crazy than the last for virality and clicks, but have nothing to do with the product or brand. The goal for KFC in the United States nowadays is to offer consumers, in the words of the CEO, quote, a truly incredible value with enough food to feed a family for multiple meals. KFC is a powerful demonstration of how legacy and brand power is a double-edged sword that is as much a curse as it is a blessing in the world of business. It's KFC's legacy that has fueled the company's international success and appeal in emerging markets, where the Colonel is the first taste of American fried chicken that those people get. With its first mover advantage and war chest, KFC is able to reach customers in markets today that its competitors simply can't, and to win those customers through first impression, even if KFC's rivals have a much better product. What KFC is betting on these days is that when Popeyes or Chick-fil-A eventually scale to those markets one day, that hopefully by then, consumers will have become too accustomed for KFC's to prefer anyone else's fried chicken. KFC knows that its legacy and brand power in America is on its last legs, and any attempt to wrestle back domestic market share from its rivals would be futile, especially when customers know that KFC cannot compete on quality. The pure franchisor play that has fueled so much of KFC's expansion domestically and internationally, has also fueled their profits and dominance in prior decades, is now a hindrance to the Colonel's evolution. Rather than downsizing the stores to become more efficient like modern fried chicken shops, KFC is stuck with its franchisees and can only remodel its existing properties in place to make them grander but not leaner. Its new modern concepts only apply to new constructions and not existing stores. Rather than experimenting with sauces, marinades, and batters to match the changing consumer tastes, KFC is forced to constrain its creativity and preserve its legacy by keeping to the iconic 11 herbs and spices as its core flavor, which Americans these days have simply become tired of. And there's a case to be made that those international emerging markets where people love KFC, that over the decades, they will begin to also tune their own taste and potentially prefer other brands. In business, one expects companies to dominate their backyard first, viciously defend it from new competitors and entrants, and then chip away at international markets over time. It's rare to find a company like KFC who relies so heavily on international expansion to replenish a shrinking domestic market share. There's great irony that the United States, which has the greatest fried chicken consumption and serves as the birthplace of Kentucky Fried Chicken, is now KFC's weakest market with the most competition and lowest ceiling. As an American who grew up pigging out on buckets of KFC, it's sad to see the Colonel regress to a discount volume brand. Businesses, like humans, must adapt or die. For KFC in America, adaptation came too little, too late.